Part 1, this is your radicals. You need to tear this sheet off. And let me explain what a perfect square is. 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 4 is 16, 25. You see what I'm doing, okay? So because 1 times 1 is 1, the square root of 1 equals 1. The square root of 4 equals 2. The number times itself, that's 9, is 3. The square root of 16 is 4. The square root of 16 is 5. The square root of 36 is 6. And you can see that on down the line. Okay, now, so these numbers are your perfect squares. Okay, you kind of have to memorize this right here. Okay. So, like on it, when you get your paper or whatever, first off, ask him if you can, like, have a piece of scratch paper or two or whatever, okay? Because I saw the test, there's not a lot of workspace for what you're going to need it for. Okay, so you have to memorize this. Square root of 1 is 1, square root of 4 is 2, square root of 9 is 3, square root of 16 is 4. What's 5 times 5? It's 25. So square root of 25 equals 5. Square root of 36 equals 6. Unless that's on a poster in the room, you have to memorize these. Just write them on your paper or whatever. Ask if you can borrow a sheet of paper. Show him it's blank. And then write this down. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Now, here's the problems. Part 1, okay, the square root of 4 times the square root of 4. When you're multiplying two square roots into 1, you take 4 times 4, and that's 16, okay? What's the square root of 16 equal? 16 is a perfect square, okay? It equals 4, so that's your answer. Okay, square root, and then I can multiply 5 times 5, that's going to be 25. And 25 is a perfect square, it's 5. Square root of 6 times the square root of 6, you multiply it into the square root of 36. And what's the square root of 36? It's 6. Want to guess what this is going to be? Probably 7. So the square root of 49, and the square root of 49 is 7. Okay, turn the page. Yeah, we got more to talk about here. Now you have to simplify these. No decimals, those aren't allowed. Okay. Well, I look up, I see 50 is not one of my perfect squares, okay? So here's how you handle this. Put a division sign after the 50, okay? And then make little parentheses off this side, and you're going to divide that up into 2 square roots, okay? But you can't just divide by anything. So we're dividing into the 50 every time. So we take the first perfect square that's smaller than 50, 49, okay? 49. So take 50 divided by 49. That's a decimal. So then you go to 36 and work your way back up. 50 divided by 36, decimal. 50 divided by 25. Okay, I didn't get a decimal. Okay. So I fill these square roots in with 25 first, the perfect square first. And then the answer I got when I divided 50 by 25 and got 2 second. Okay. Now, the reason you do that, because the square root of 25 is a perfect square. It's equal to 5. So then you ditch this and write it as 5. So it's 5 square root 2. Okay, next problem, the square root of 45. So 40 is 45 a perfect square. If it's a perfect square, you just write the frickin' answer, okay? But it's not, so you have to divide into it, okay? Square root times square root. So let's take 45. You'd start at 36 because you know these perfect squares higher than 45 ain't going to do it. So start at 36. 45 divided by 36, decimal, fail. 45 divided by 25, decimal, fail. So you should have this list on a sheet or scratch paper, right? Asking for a piece of scratch paper, 2 of them, okay? Divided by 16, decimal. 45 divided by 9 is 5. So stop dividing. You have your 2 factors, 9, 5. Put the 9 first. If you flip them around, you're going to get confused. So you need to ditch the square root of 9 because that actually equals the whole number 3. So it's 3 radical 5 or 3 square root 5. Okay, square root of 60. 60 a perfect square? Nope. And you divide it into two radicals if it's not a perfect square root. Okay. So you'd start at 49. I don't even waste time with the perfect squares higher than 60. That's wrong. 36 a decimal. 25 is a decimal. 16 is a decimal. 9 is a decimal. Okay, that works. It's 4 and 15. So you put 4 in the first square root, 15 in the second, and the square root of the number 4 is 2. So 2 square root 15. Okay. 90. 90 is not a perfect square. So you divide into it. So we'd start at 81. Decimal. Decimal ain't going to cut it. Okay. Divided by 64. 90 divided by 64. Decimal. 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 Okay, 9 and 10. 9 first, 10 second. Square root of 9 is 3. So 3 square root 10. Okay. 15 is 15 a perfect square. It's not. Okay. So 15 divided by 9. 9 you start at. Decimal. Decimal. Okay, you can put 1 and 15, but here's the deal with 1. The square root of 1 is 1. He is going to dock you if you get something like that and you put 1 square root of 15. When you have a 1, you lose it, and it just ends up, the square ends up where you started at. Okay. Now, I have a lot of kids, when we do this in my classes, they just go divide every time. No, look and see if 16 a perfect square, it is. So I'm not doing any of that division bullshit, bull crap, okay? So, just write the answer. It's 4. Okay. There's no point in dividing it when it's already a perfect square to begin with. Okay, square root of 98, so I divide into the 98. So 98 divided by 81, decimal. 98 divided by 64, decimal. Divided by 49, 98 divided by 49, that works, okay? So 49 and 2. You need to replace the square at 49 because it's a perfect square. It's equal to 7. So 7 square root 2. Okay, 18, is that a perfect square? Nope. Divide into it. And you got to figure out what perfect, you put your perfect square here, and that whatever 18 divided by that is goes here. So 18 divided by 16 is a decimal. 18 divided by 9, money. 9, 2. 9 in the first. It's like you're breaking the 18 into 9 times 2, but then the square root of 9 is replaced with 3. So it's 3 radical 2, or 3 square root 2. Yeah, now if you're going to take Algebra 2 next year, you have to know how to do this because we are pretty deep into it. The people who are doing okay in geometry, it's probably because they took Algebra 2 and they already knew how to do this, okay? Okay, so now, here's what you do. You're going to divide into the 20, because 20 is not a perfect square. What you do is you drop the 5, okay? Put a times dot, and then you divide into your 20, because you know it's not a perfect square. So you take 20 divided by 16, decimal. 20 divided by 9, decimal. 20 divided by 4, not a decimal, so you put 4, 5. So we know that the square root of 4 becomes 2, okay? So now what you do is you write 2 square root 5, okay? Then I multiply the 5 and the 2 because those are not radical factors. 5 times 2 is 10, so it's 10 square root 5. Okay, you drop the 2, put a multiplication sign. It's multiplying, not adding. Is 50 a perfect square? It's not, okay? So I divide into the 50. Now, whatever this is, we can't forget about the 2. So 50 divided by 49, no. 36, no. 25, 2, in that order. You screw it up around, you're going to get problems. So drop that down, 5, square root 2, then you take 2 times 5, that's 10, square root 2. Okay, 11 square root 8, okay. 8's not a perfect square, so we need to divide it into 2 square roots. So you start at 4. These are 4 buzz, so 4, 2. So you replace the square root of 4 with 2, and you just drop that down as 2 radical 2. 11 times 2 is 22, radical 2. Now this one here, if it's a perfect square, don't freaking divide, okay? See, I don't divide it because 4 is already a perfect square. It's equal to 2. So I just write that as 9 times 2, and 9 times 2 is 18, and there ain't going to be a radical, okay? Because we just get rid of that on the spot, okay? And yeah. Okay, now, it's another multiplication. You just have an extra step. You multiply the 2 by the 5, and that's 10, and then you multiply your radical factors. 3 times 6 is 18. Now you're just what we were doing on the last page. You drop your 10 down. 18, not a perfect square, so you divide into it. Make 2 square roots. 18 divided by 16, I don't think that's a winner. 18 divided by 9 is 2, so 9, 2. Of course, you always get rid of the first square root because that's 3. So it's going to be times 3 square root 2. Then you got to multiply the 10 by the 3. That's 30. Square root 2. Next problem. Take the 4 times the 6. That's 24. 3 times 4 is 12. Drop your 24. Divide into it. Figure out what goes into 12. So 12 divided by 9 decimal. 12 divided by 4 is 3. So 4, 3. And you cross out the square root of 4 and replace it with 2. Now don't forget, you have to take the 24 times a 2 now. 24 times 2 is 48. Square root 3. Now this one here, 2 times 5 is 10. Square root of 3 times square root of 3 is square root of 9. Now, 9's already a perfect square, okay? So I get rid of it right there, and it's 3. So don't be dividing into it when you already have a perfect square. And that means we're not going to have a radical in the answer. 10 times 3 is 30. Okay, 4 times 8 is 32. Square root of 5 times square root of 5, that's a square root of 25. So you drop your 32 down. Is there any point in dividing the 25? No, it's a perfect square, so that becomes 5. So there ain't going to be a square root. When you take the 32 times a 5, you get 160. Now, this was also on the part 1 of the test that I labeled, okay? Simplify 8 divided by the square root of 2. Now here's the deal. You can't divide a number that's not a radical by a number that is. I'm going to show you how to do this a quick way because right now we're in just survival mode. This is how you divide radicals when you have to divide by radical. Scribble out the radical and we're just going to have 2. Now when you do that, you have to put radical 2 on top, okay? Just remember that, okay? Now you divide 8 by 2, that's 4. And you attach the radical 2 onto it, okay? That's the quick way. Okay, scribble out the radical so we can just have 3 down there, but then I need to then take radical 3 on the top. Now 11 divided by 3 is a decimal, so you keep it as a fraction. 11 square root 3 over 3, okay? Shoot, I didn't mean to put 4 down there, okay? Scribble that out. Put 7, okay? Okay, all right, now scribble out the radical, put square root 7 up there. Now the 9 divided by the 7 is a decimal, so you put 9 square root 7 over 7. Okay, next one, get rid of the radical on the 5. Is you can do that as long as you put a radical 5 on top, okay? The reason why that is, don't write this down, just watch. You're actually, when I do that, you're actually multiplying by a fraction. You're multiplying the top and bottom by this radical 5, okay? So it's going to be the square root of 25, okay? You can't multiply these. You can't multiply a non-radical by a radical. So that's 10 radical 5. But of course, 25 is a perfect square root, so we eliminate it, and it's 5, okay? But you can get through all that nonsense if you just remember to take the radical off the bottom, move that same radical term as a factor on top, okay? 10 divided by 5 is 2, so it's 2 radical 5. Okay, that's all she wrote. I put some practice right there. I took them straight off what was on that test.